So, production phase. No, sorry, New Year phase. And of course nobody's drawing peace dividends because we are not this type of guys who go for an economic victory.
Mix.
Always on the brutal side of things, and we are shuffling these cards into the deck. And we also have to roll for turn order. So it will be here. And the German player will do his production first.
Well, one.
One in Ruhr, right?
Yes.
Okay. So he's got a tremendous production ability of 12,
Fortress.
which is pretty unusual if you don't claim Paris and the resources of Lorraine.
Another fortress. Another one, or another build. Another rebuild. Another build. Another build. Another build. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards.
I mean, it would be normal to do a production of 12 if at peace, but to do it while at war means the war has been going really well. And to be honest, I have gifted him some nice cards, so he didn't even have to draw some action card.
Okay.
So it's me then, and I've got 9 production to do. And it comes as no surprise to you that I have got to stabilize this front here. First 2 points of my production would go here. One more. Next one will go here. And I will also be drawing 3 action cards, please. So my hand size is at 6. And moving to the Western player.
Well, I'm at 8 industry. I will be reinforcing everything in London.
I suggest you build a fort in Canada for unknown reasons.
Yes, of course. So we are at 5, right?
Yeah, okay.
I will place a fort in Canada in order to be triggered. Also, there will be some builds.
So some new cadres are being recruited in London.
3.
English men at arms.
And now there is one move left. I would say, let's build something in London for a change.
Yeah, one more in London would never hurt anyone. And we are moving on to the government phase. What is your hand size,
10.
Mr. Adolf? 10, okay.
I'm 8.
Okay, so Germans.
Germans, of course, as always. Well, it's
So it's government phase, and it's the Germans' turn.
Romania.
Yeah, Romanians were always eager to join the German side, we all remember that.
Jorge.
Yeah, it's my turn, and your hand size is 8, Mr. West.
Yes,
Okay, so I guess I will pass for now.
I will pass as well.
Austria.
Okay, I will pass.
I will place an Austria card.
Okay, so Austria's cancel each other out.
I will add one influence marker to Spain.
Makes sense.
The Russian?
As for the Russian, well, I will use ties that binds to place a marker in Spain, which will cancel out the German player's Spain. And
I pass.
Austria. Or not Austria. Not again Austria. Perhaps.
so there's no 3 Austria cards in the German hand. We should conclude.
Perhaps Czechoslovakia.
Might do the trick. It's a pass by me.
I will play a Czechoslovakia card to cancel out.
You see why I don't play with influence, because
Look, yeah, that's my theory as well.
it's
I
better
mean,
with ours.
First time Germans would think that because you've got many influence cards drawn, you should draw more action cards. But if this is the case, then the other players will match you, and if you combine the Russian and Western production, it outproduces yours.
I pass.
Okay. So this might be the time we do some diplomatic move, but no, I will leave it for another time. And yeah, I think I will pass as well.
I pass.
Okay, so one influence in Romania, which doesn't change a whole lot at this stage. And moving on to spring. German player goes first again.
Of course, I will play. I commit a card.
Probably, yeah, I will commit a card. Yeah, this one might do the trick. And let's go. G6.
K5.
E5.
Okay, so German player goes first. 5 commands.
I will try to intervade to Poland.
Yeah, you may try.
Since,
This will be a hard task to do.
Here, normally, we should put a
Yeah,
marker just
I'm
to see the
the
aggression.
violator, sure.
Because
This
I want
is
to create peace
Yeah,
to this country.
you want to save the Polish from the Soviet, no?
So that would be one. The second one would be...
And please turn this marker towards the war status.
Oh, yes, yes. I would enter. I will go on my fight.
So you will reinforce the Leningrad front.
Another one would be here. And the last one would be 1, 2, 3 strategical move to
So
Lorraine.
it's not a tank, thanks for the hint.
Yeah, that's all. And I will trigger the fight here, there.
First of all, let's replace the Polish guys with German ones, because it is done at the end of your movement, and you can also place your influence marker there. So a triple one in Warsaw and a double one in Lvov. So you have lifted the Soviet yoke. And let's see if Adolf is a better conqueror than Stalin. Time will tell. And you're triggering the Leningrad fight, I recall.
Although I have the advantage of the ships, but as you saw before, no hits with ships, so perhaps it's better to stay. But if they stay, perhaps they will be slotted.
Yeah, that's the historical dilemma, the Axis.
I will stay. I will stay. I will not fight.
So you will not trigger this fight. You can do so because you committed no aggression. You just reinforced the front. And now it's my turn. And by saying my turn, I mean it's time to punish the mistakes committed by the Germans.
But how?
Oh, that's very simple, don't worry. I've got 6 commands. One would be to move here by disengaging this one.
Can you pass through Poland?
Yeah, I can pass because it is not occupied by anyone. So it is an open ground for everyone. The second move is this one. And the third move has to be this one.
So this is a ship?
Yeah, it's a plane.
No, it does not have to be a ship. Actually, it can't be a ship because there is the land here which I could not pass over. It's an aeroplane that flies over the Baltic states.
I forgot the plane, yes.
Yeah, this is a common mistake done by the Germans invading Russia, and I won't miss this chance of capitalizing now. In order to make our plan a full success, I'm missing some key parts, which is I can disengage with my unit into the Gulf of Bothnia, and this would prevent a possible retreat of German fleets, but I will not do this for now. I think what would be worth... Actually, this might do the trick. I can use this one to strategically move through Copenhagen. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commands, and I will relocate my plane to Gulf of Bothnia instead of Baltic Sea. So I've got one more command.
It was a strategical move from one.
Murmansk, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
So it's viable. And the last one command might possibly be this one, for reasons I can't explain right now. So since I am friends with the West for a little while more, I can pass through the Straits of Malta. So the deal with the West is that if you declare war upon me, I will awake the sleeping giant that is called America, but I will not do it before I am declared war upon. So I think I don't have to trigger any fight. I will finish my move like that.
Okay, then it's I have K. Ah, okay.
5 commands for the allied player.
Okay, I
For that
think.
you're playing.
Yeah, in any case, I could have done this with the ship,
yes.
but you've got to know that this flank is very exposed and you have always got to keep control of either Königsberg or Vilna, or maybe all the ships.
Mm-hmm.
Or alternatively, you can tie up all these units in battles so that they cannot easily disengage.
Mm. Well, I think I will declare the war on Russians.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
Okay.
Just be careful not to starve my unit out of supply, otherwise he can't do the trick.
Okay. And then I will do a typical raid on my friend.
Yeah, okay, the everyday practice of English pilots.
And then I maybe use this friend for a sea invasion on Low Countries.
Okay, it's indeed a sea invasion, which means even if it is unoccupied, you only get to cross this border with one unit, and this brings Low Countries under Western control, which means one population less for the Germans and one population more for the West.
So,
We got any other commands?
I think 4, right?
Yeah, you have one command remaining if you wish.
This one.
Okay,
I'll
so you
do
have
the
to
same.
trigger the raid in Paris.
Raid in Paris by 4 airplanes.
So the German fort is attacking the airplanes, and it's not a hit.
Okay, let's.
I remind against the airplanes it would need 1 or 2. So now the English airplanes, first of all, 2 will hit. Which one?
Ground units, of course.
All of them, all of the 4. You could.
Yes. Destroy the ship, right?
Yeah.
You might try to destroy the ship if you want, but it's up to you.
I think that I will attack ground units only.
Okay, so 4 dice onto ground. And it's of no hit. And now the Germans get a chance to fire back with 6 dice of 1.
Yeah, the ship first, right?
Okay, that's 1 hit.
And the infantry with 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And 1 more hit to the 2 combat value plane. So
better
this fight
prepared.
did not go well for the West this time.
I will relocate and then I will attack the Russians.
Okay, it's a convoy, an infantry unit of 1, and you've got your strong ship, which means you can just sink my guy, but
procedure.
but motherland will be proud of him. That's for sure, because he has accomplished an astonishing
I
feat.
can rebase, right?
Yeah, but that's not a rebase. You've got to end in friendly land territory. So that's no rebase. You've got to end your move inside the friendly land. Yeah, you cannot optionally occupy the seas. Yeah. So just reminding to the viewers that you could rebase even in Low Countries because it is the combat phase now, and it changed the control at the start of the combat phase. So the English unit moved during the movement phase, and then at the start of the combat phase, it is Allied control. So you can rebase in the Low Countries.
And I don't know if it's a good move, but I think I should reinforce
Probably not, because if somebody attacks you from North Sea, you will be unable to retreat into North Sea, so it's better not to enclose your strong naval units in such enclosed position that may be attacked by all sides, but you are lucky in the sense that the German player has no command right now. Okay, so this was Spring, and we've got some supply problems for the German infantry and the panzers. And also for a unit in Riga, if it is a ground unit.
It's not.
Okay, I will accept that. So moving on to summer. Okay, might be a stronghold, sir. So moving on to summer. And the German player will decide whether to play a card.
I will commit a card.
Okay, I will also commit a card.
I will do.
W7.
Oh, really? It's T for me.
I.
Okay, so Western player goes first.
Okay. I think I will move this one right here. One. This one right here. And this one to look under. And this is it.
Okay, so some defensive measures to ensure London is not taken outright. And now it's my move with a command number of 8. So it's time to keep punishing the Germans in Leningrad. For that we shall need some reinforcements from the now safe Murmansk. Second command will be to Riga from Belarusia. Third one will be into Belarusia. And okay, the fourth one has to be invading Canada and unleashing hell upon the world by waking the Americans. So this would be my fourth command, which means you turn this marker over and America is joining the war. To be honest, I'm not sure that was the absolutely correct timing to do this move, but the Germans are really strong in France and this could force a D-Day which could prolong the game and work in my favor.
Αυτό το βάζω τελώς λίγο.
You turn it into satellite, USA is satellite, which means your industry cost is lowered by a further 1. Okay, so this will conclude my moves, and since I am invading USA, the American units will be entering the game right here, right now, at a combat value of 1. And it's 1 infantry, 1 tank, 1 fleet and 1 air force. They may enter even in disputed territory. It can be either Washington or New York. And in the next year's production, they will be joining in combat value of 2. And that's it. I will be triggering the fight in Baltic states. So I've got a double infantry and you've got a single fort which will be firing first. And it's a hit, and I get a 50% chance to kill this fort. But to be honest, I don't really mind. The fort will not die, but that's none of my concern. Because the main fight will occur in Leningrad, this heroic city withstanding the attack, and my fort will attack your tank.
And it was really historical, but a bit anachronistic.
A bit earlier than it should be, because the Germans were more aggressive than they should have been. And your tank dies out, and this means the fleets get their last chance to fire back.
Yeah, 4.
And they will.
Just.
It's 5 fleets. So it's 1 hit, which will be allocated to the tank. Nothing. So I don't even need to hit right now because all these ships will die. And we are in firm control of Leningrad right now, and we've stabilized the front, I hope, once and for all. And okay, I think we are done with summer. No, it's the German player.
7. 1 here. Another one here, another one here.
Okay, so the German player is going now full force on
another one
the southern
here,
flank.
another one here, strategical move, 1, 2, 3, 4.
It's okay, you don't have to
Yeah.
specify the moves taken, you just know that it's a valid move.
1, 2, here.
Okay, so you're triggering the two fights in Kiev and
Yeah, we'll
Odessa.
start from this one.
No, sorry, wait, we forgot this battle, which
yeah.
will be the single fort attacking my Soviet guy. I would
see.
like it if he could succeed and survive. And no, he dies.
No.
Okay.
What
A
are-
great monument will be set for him back in motherland Russia.
What would be succeeded
If he survived? Well, I could in a subsequent season disengage him and do some really nasty and annoying stuff, like delaying your forces from going through the North Atlantic, for example, or other kinds of stuff, but that's for another game, not for this one.
The first battle will be here.
Okay, so my double fort will attack the two ground units. Sorry, the second die roll will be okay. Okay.
2 hits.
So it's 2 hits on the double combat value units, and you get a chance to fire back with your tank first, and after that with the infantry, which are both misses. And then we trigger Odessa, and this is a triple tank all the way from Warsaw, and it's 1 hit, and the double tank will fire back, and it's 1 hit. So we are staying in control of both Kiev and Odessa, and now it is indeed time for supply and blockade. I can't see any units being in supply problems right now, but maybe there is a chance for a blockade. So yeah, this time the sea segment here is blocked by the neutral and the Russian whatever.
This one.
Yeah, so we've got to trace a route from Middle East and from India. For a lagging segment it would reach up to here, and then it would be stuck. And this is Italian territory, so you can't pass through here. So the only way to ship some resources is through South Atlantic Ocean. So we place these med blockade markers here and here and here. No, this one does not make any sense. It's a full blockade because it's population. So you lose 1, 3, 4 population due to blockade. No, you don't move the marker. You just place the unblocked marker. 4 population less, and 1, 2, 3 resources. So 3 resources and 4 population are blocked right now, but the Western player is okay because of his conquest of America, I suppose. So we are moving on to fall.
I'm falling for your love. I'm falling.
And this is a German player committing a card.
I will commit a card.
I will commit a card as well.
Me too.
B6.
And 6.
G8.
So German first.
I will disengage. Disengage here.
Disengage into Lvov, 1 guy.
Disengage here. Disengage here.
I was afraid that the tank in Kiev would stay because it would have some nice chances. Anyway, so 3 disengages for now.
Here, another one here, and the third one. Strategical move. I will use an Italian force to Poland.
Okay, so that's a transfer a long way from home.
That's all.
Yeah, so the German player is switching to defensive posture in the Eastern Front and even relocate some units from the Western Front. And it's a G8 for the Western player.
Can I cut out of supply of these guys if I
You've
do
got
this?
to find it out yourself, but the only thing I have to tell you is that Paris is not a supply source for a German, even though he controls it.
So I can do one move.
Sure.
Second one.
This has to be a ground unit, I remind.
Yes. Third one, right here, right? And then I have to make some strategic moves. One, he can be moved.
If it's a fleet or carrier, it can move up to 6 spaces, but don't forget that the oceans cost 2 movement points to cross.
Okay. If it's a normal unit,
If it's an infantry or rare unit, for example, it can move 4 spaces strategically.
so it's 2,
Exactly.
3.
Yeah, but if it is a plane, again, it cannot strategically move into sea. This is what I have to remind you.
4. Okay. And another one can go 6 moves.
So recapping, when strategically moving air forces, it has to start in friendly land and end in friendly land.
Okay. This one can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, precisely if it is a fleet or carrier.
Okay.
And I guess the other 2 are forts. No, excuse me. You have to place 2 forts. One quadruple one in Washington and one double one in New York.
So I have some moves left, right? 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
I have
precisely.
three ones. So I can make a strategic movement here.
Yes.
And another one with my plane. It's obviously a plane, right? It can move 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Yeah, so the Americans are grouping up in England to start the D-Day, which in this alternative universe might be easier than the actual one, as far as I can tell. And this concludes our movements without a fight.
And there is a supply.
Yeah, and there are supply problems for every single infantry or tank
But
in
why?
Paris. There are because you cannot cross these land territories.
But
And by sea you cannot reach here, and you cannot trace your supply through neutrals.
but supply sub-capital already.
This one does not count as a supply source for any player than the Western player.
Heute wollen wir marschieren, einen neuen Marsch probieren.
My move is over.
Okay, and I have 6 commands now. So you made this card, 6 commands. I don't know if we can punish the Germans harder than we have already done for invading our dear motherland. And okay, I've got to be worried about this pile of tanks. By the way, you should reduce your population by 1 due to Königsberg, and I should upgrade it by
And
1.
my population is changed.
No, but you gain 2 resources for Lorraine, and you lose 2 resources for Lorraine.
Alright, that.
Okay, and now we may proceed. I'm not even sure I want to bother with Baltic states that badly, but better now than never, I guess. So, 1 command, a 2nd command, a 3rd command. And this concludes my commands. I will trigger this battle in the Baltic states. So I hope I'm going to make this historical reality of the Soviets reclaiming Baltic states, and it's a 1 hit onto the tanks.
Okay.
So 1 roll for my tank, which is enough. And yeah, I place my marker back into the Baltic states once more without gaining anything meaningful, but who cares. And yeah, this concludes fall, and we've got huge supply issues for all these guys trapped in Paris, because Paris is not a supply source for the Germans, only for the Western players. And they cannot trace a supply route through any of these land areas because they are occupied, and they cannot either use these land areas because they are neutral or armed minors, and also they can't use this sea space to reach Denmark and Germany because this sea area is occupied by the Western players' units. So, moving down to winter, I don't wish to commit any card, and moving to 1938.
Yeah.
You know, it's a nightmare of a game when, starting in 1936, players start checking supply issues because everybody has declared war to everyone, and the game turns into a chess game. Yeah, it's one, so it remains here. No peace dividends, of course, and we are shuffling the decks and German production. These blockade markers are removed for now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Action cards.
Action
Okay,
cards.
so the German player is switching to a diplomatic posture because war didn't work nearly as well as expected. Yeah, one step too far at the Eastern Front, and logistic failures at the Western Front has resulted in Germany having a greatly diminished army. And now it's my turn for production. 9 points of production. And this would be definitely 4 industry cards. And 5 more points to utilize will be this one. And this one. We've got to consider upgrading some more units, like this one. Also this one. And this will be the final one. I've got to confess, normally this is a point of the game where I would try to send an infantry to invade Spain and reinforce the Western player by an intervention, but the West is far too much ahead right now to consider that.
So it's my turn? Are you done?
Yeah, with 8 production points.
8 production points.
And you may remove your unblocked resource and population markers for now.
What?
Because we will be evaluating them in the next blockade phase.
Okay, so I have to take 1 factory card. Can I upgrade this?
Yes.
Yeah, you can upgrade any unit that is not engaged in a battle and is in supply and not in a sea area.
So I use 3 of my moves to reinforce these ones. A 4th one to reinforce this one. And 2 in order to take some cards.
Okay, so your hand size goes up to 8, I guess.
6.
Okay. My hand size is 6 as well.
Mine is 12.
Okay, so government phase, and the German player goes first once more.
Sweden.
Okay, so 1 point for Sweden, which might very well turn it into a satellite. And I will upgrade my industry by discarding 3 factories. And I remind you that I can only do this twice per year.
I will upgrade my factory as well.
Okay,
With 4
4
now.
is enough because the cost of 6 is reduced by 1 because of the German declaration of war, and by further 1 by the USA turning into a Western satellite.
Finland.
Okay, so all Scandinavia starts speaking German, and I will discard 3 factories to further upgrade my industry, and that's it for my industry for this year.
I will add Hungary with brothers in arms.
Okay, so don't forget to add 1 pop and 1 resource.
Sorry, Americans?
Yeah, okay. During the New Year phase, you've got the Americans joining at 2 combat value: infantry, tank, fleet, and air force. Just to specify which ones are in Washington and which ones are in New York. Not that it matters, but just for clarity.
Okay.
Hungary.
Hungary again. Okay. Hungry Hungarians for war. And I will pass.
Pass as well.
Finland.
It's a pass by me.
Pass by me.
Czechoslovakia.
So it's the first one for Czechoslovakia.
6.
Okay, I will try to be a bit more annoying than I already have been. I will reduce the German player's industry by 1. And on to the Western player.
I will pass for now.
I will pass.
Okay, and I will pass as well. So, You are adding 2 in Finland, and one in
Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia, and one more in Hungary. And one more in Sweden, which turns it into a satellite.
Just on
Which
resource.
means 1 resource for Finland and a double unit in Stockholm. Okay, so government is over, and moving to spring. German player talking first,
I will pass.
and I will pass as well.
I will play a card.
Okay, we've got a
Yeah,
chance
yeah,
to talk, but
yeah,
okay, we
I
both
will.
pass, and it's a d5 for the west.
So, I think I will make some strategic movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Oh, yes, strategic.
No, you
card.
can't strategically attack the opponent, so
Mhm.
1 strategic movement it is.
It would be strategic move, but can it be done?
This would be to grant the strategy to apply.
2, 3, 4 is strategic. In
Okay,
London.
so it goes to London.
3, 1, 2, 3 in London.
It's 4 movements to London, but okay.
4 in order to attack, make a raid here.
Wonder if there is anyone who would survive the supply attrition check, but okay.
Yes, and another one would go to Lowlands.
Okay, so this concludes your movements, and you've got to trigger the raid in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
A double fort, a double fleet, and a single infantry. So double fort
Yeah.
onto naval, and it's 0 hits. And now it's the double German fleet firing. So the Kriegsmarine scores 1 hit, and the English fleet. Of
I
3.
will attack fleet.
Yeah, okay. And it's 2 hits, which sinks
That's
the
enough.
German. This was the Bismarck, the terror of the seas for those who know.
Yes, I will take it back.
And you
Yeah.
are retreating in the English Channel.
Yes,
Okay.
it was mostly for scout purposes, but it paid out well, I think.
I could agree. So you were the only player to move, so we're moving directly to the supply check, and the German guy dies out of starvation there as usual. And then we're moving to summer.
Το καλοκαίρι μου αρέσει, κολυμπάω και...
And in summer, the German player might want to commit a
I
card.
pass.
I will commit a card.
I will commit a card as well.
Okay,
Just
and
a moment to
yeah,
see.
you might change your decision.
Okay, pass.
Okay, so we're both revealing our cards. I've got a d7.
S9.
Okay, so I'm moving first. 7 commands to be utilized. And the first one will be this. Second one will be this. Third one will be this one. So some disengage action. This one as well. This one as well. Sorry, this was not intentional. But it serves the purpose of intimidating the enemy. And we've got 2 more which we could possibly try and utilize. But I think I'll skip my last commands. That's me.
Okay. Strategic movement. Can I strategic move by land and sea?
You cannot combine the 2 forms of sea movement and land movement. You can either strategically move by sea or by land.
Okay. The first one will be 1, 2, 3, and 4, right?
Okay, so a unit from Suez is reinforcing Karachi after seeing the Russian advance.
Mm-hmm. Second one will be going here. So these ones can go here. And we're at 4 moves, right?
Yeah, should be 4.
5 with this one.
Just for the sake of clarity, this area is now again controlled at the start of the combat phase by the German player who controls Paris, but this makes no difference because it's just a fort and they did not trace supply through here.
Another one here.
And again, these two resources temporarily will go back to the German player at the start of the combat phase, which means if the combat fails, the Western player will lose.
I have made 5 moves, right?
Yeah.
6. 7 will be a strategic move. 2, 3, 4. And this one just to be safe.
Okay.
And I think it doesn't
Just be
hurt.
careful not to move the same unit twice.
Yes. Okay.
So, we are done. Let's trigger this fight. It's a double fort against all this huge pile of English-speaking guys. And it's a hit
One
onto
hit.
the ground unit, right?
One hit.
Okay, so
The American will taste what's Europe.
the Americans will shed some blood by invading the Omaha bits during D-Day, 6th of
And
June
now
1944.
I have
Or-
7 hits, right?
For this universe, it will be 6th May of 1938, because why not?
No, the fleet.
Yeah, the
starts.
fleets will attack the
5
fort.
dice.
5 dice. Let's
Yeah.
start with 2. Nope, fruitless. 3 more.
Yeah, and that's the fort being hit once. And we've got the infantry is not the sea invading ones, if there is any. Only
There
the
is no.
Okay, so the overland advancing infantries all get a chance to fire. So it's a total of
So-
7 dice.
And I need 3 or less.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's a hit, so the fort goes down. So in this historical day of 6th of June on 1938, in this universe, the Americans are reclaiming France. So it's 3 population down for the German and 3 population up for the Western player.
Resources?
And the resources remain as they were because control of Lorraine was already in the
Yeah.
Western hands.
So I.
So you flip these units and you can optionally rebase your ships if you so wish.
I will leave them in Paris for repairs.
Okay, that's a wise move. Okay, this concludes summer. I don't see any supply problems right now. And we are moving to blockade. And for blockade, there are the usual problems for the Western player, or maybe not, because maybe at this stage a route to Paris could be traced. No, it stops here. So the land segment for purposes of blockade would go again up to here, but it is blocked by Germany and Italy.
Maybe it would be wiser to move one from lowlands to New York.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be a
Yes.
wise move to protect your blockade trade routes, but to be honest, you've got fall to fix that, and I don't even know if this will make any difference because it is just 4 population and 3 resources, which probably does not make any difference, but you should track that. 4 population is blocked as well as 3 resources.
4 population is blocked. So we are down to
Down to 12 for both of your
them,
resources
yes.
and population. So, moving to fall.
Wake me up when September ends.
And it's the German player.
Pass.
It's a pass for me as well now.
for me.
Okay, so moving to winter, it's of course a pass for me as well. And the new year of 1939 brings once more no peace dividends, brings a turn order die roll, as well as 2 deck reshuffles. The turn order is a 4, which means the turn order marker is moved here. And for the first time in this historical timeline, the Western player will produce first. So a Western production of 9, and you may remove the blockade markers.
9. I will draw 2
Investment
investment
cards.
cards. So I got
7
7
remaining.
moves. I will build something. No one knows what.
Which might be either a fort or a fort, who knows?
I think I can use the Americans that come from New Year, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
During the New Year phase, American accounts of triple combat value are arriving in the form of a fleet, an air force, and infantry and a tank. This makes me question myself a bit whether I was a bit too harsh on the Germans and too helpful on the Western player. but time will tell.
I'm on 6, right?
Yep.
1, 2, 3. I'm down on 3. Now I will be 1, 2, and I will take 1 action card.
I hope you have not found what you were looking for. And moving on to the Soviets. I've got a production value of 11, 3 of which will be investment cards. And 8 more to come. 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And I need 4 more, which strangely enough have to be committed in order to protect the Germans from defeat too early. And I also need a whole lot of action cards, so 1 here, and 3 action cards will be my pick. And the German player on the production.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 3 more. 1, 2, 3.
So your hand size is at?
14.
Okay, so a heavy pile of cards coming to us. And moving on to government. The German player, I guess, will go first because of his huge overhand. Or maybe not, scratch that. A Western player, do you want to play a card?
No.
I will raise my industry by 1 with a factory value of 3. And now the German diplomats are working day and
Denmark.
night to persuade Denmark to join the war in their side. And it's the West's turn.
I like the idea of upgrading my industry a bit.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, so
So
factory
I
value
will.
of 4. And it's my turn, which means I will also use a factory value of 3 or more to upgrade my industry by a further 1.
Second Denmark.
Okay, this is a huge threat, I would say, if that was true, but to be honest, I don't really care. So Western player speaking.
I pass.
Pass for me.
Latin America.
Pass.
Pass for me.
Turkey.
Pass.
Pass.
Romania.
Pass.
What is your hand size, German?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay, so it's a pass for me.
Finland.
Wait, what? That's big.
I pass.
I pass.
Latin America.
Pass.
Pass.
Latin America. Third one. 7.
Pass.
Yeah, okay. I've got to make a move rather sooner than later. And this will be Romania. Was this an instant marker?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just play Romania in front of me.
Oh, pass.
And to be honest, no, we will not give them a single inch of ground without blood. Finland. So you may discard your own Finland.
I will reduce my industry to put in Finland.
Okay, that was a price to pay, so it worked out.
Pass.
Pass by me.
Pass.
Okay, so this Romania is removed without effect. And you've got 2 population by Turkey because of Ankara and Istanbul, plus 1 resource for Izmir. And you also get 1 resource for Denmark and 1 combat value unit in Helsinki.
And Latin America is mine.
Yeah, also the resources of Latin America plus a double combat value unit. So, diplomacy has been working better than warfare so far for the Wehrmacht. And moving on to Spring.
There's something here.
Yeah, okay, 1 more
There's no
combat value
supply
unit.
there.
It is out of supply if it is a ground unit. No, that's not entirely true, Because it stops in Copenhagen because it is neutral.
Okay, it would be. It's very easy to cut anyway. It's too risky. I mean.
So he has to either place an ANS unit, which again would be vulnerable to possible attack from a ground unit, or a forward.
Okay, that's all.
Καλοκαιράκι, βράδινο μπανάκι.
So spring it is, and the Western player is talking first.
I'm ready to pass.
I'm as ready as ever to pass, and the German player deciding.
I pass.
Okay.
A bloodless spring.
Okay, and this is summer. Would the Western player like to add
Yes,
something?
I think.
Same here.
Summer is hot.
Okay, since you play, I will commit the card.
It's Athens, Greece here, so summers are always hot. So it's J by me, so I get to move first. And I think it's about time we violate Persia to start our expansionist plans. So a double fort is placed in Tehran, and you will draw 2 cards hits. So we've got 9 commands to use, and this would be a mess by me because there's something I forgot to check. But we can't help it. It will be 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then that's it. I'm done. 4 moves. So because of my poor placement, the tank had to C invade, and I have also got an infantry and a tank, and also a double aeroplane. So the fort will attack the ground unit, and the C invading tank will absorb the damage. And now my double plane, excuse me, which is a failure, but then it's my triple tank, and it's 2 hits. Bingo.
Well done.
So Russia it is, which means 1 population plus 4 resources of Abadan, and I can optionally rebase my aeroplane, but I wish to leave it as it is. So summer for West, 9 commands.
Summer for West, 9 commands. A strategic movement.
Of course.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in lowlands.
So low countries is the destination.
1, 2, 3 forts ending in London.
Okay.
1, 2, 3 ending in London as well. And the same
route for this guy. And now that's a funny moment when in other games this might be the chance for the Germans to attack America now that it's empty of units once and for all. But I don't think the Germans have got this capability right now.
So there were 4 moves, right?
These were 4 Americans moving, that's true. So you've got 5 commands remaining.
Mm-hmm. I will go 1, 2, 3 in order to raid Ruhr.
So from Paris to Ruhr. Okay.
Yes. I have 4 moves left, right?
Yeah.
1 more.
Be careful not to move the same unit twice.
Yes.
Okay.
2, I think I can. Yes.
2 ground units can cross this river border.
Okay. 7. And this will be enough. I think 9, right?
Okay, so heavy bombards are starting in the industrial city of Ruhr, which is the heart of the German industry, and it's what exactly happened historically, albeit 5 or 6 years later.
I started thinking about using the summer to scout with my ship, and then said I have plenty of resources, so why not?
Look, you don't have much to worry about, and in summer you can use your ample number of commands because usually summer is full of commands.
Yes. So let's go. There is... I thought there would be much more.
No, Ruhr will fall like a ripe fruit.
So...
To your ground units.
And it's a hit.
It's a hit to one of my English
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. So. And now it's
The aeroplanes.
the aeroplanes and the ships all firing at a rate of 1, so it's a total of 7 dice on the ground.
7 dice.
Yeah, 2, 3, 7. No, it's 6. My mistake.
6. I think I will target ground units.
Yeah, I would agree to this decision.
Nothing from the 3 first.
And 1 hit generated. And
Really
now
useful.
it's the infantry firing. So
5.
yeah, 5 infantry guys firing at the fort. And it's 3 hits, more than enough. So you've got 2 population and 3 resources. And at the verge of victory by raising the English flag in Berlin. But we've got to protect the Reichstag now. So it's Germans.
With 8, movement 8. 1 would be here. 2 would be here. 3 would be here. 4 would be here.
So lots of commotion in
would
the
be
Eastern Front.
Here. Another would be here. Another one would be here. And the last one would be here.
I think it's a do or die, right?
Yeah, it's his last chance of trying to invade the Soviet Union.
And win the game by taking everything.
But in order to do this, he has to conquer both Leningrad and Moscow.
First and second.
Okay, so there's no raid, so we're triggering the battle for Kiev right now. And the double fort will possibly save the day, or not. It's no hits, surprisingly. So 5 tanks are firing at the fort. And it's no hit, and then 2 infantries.
One more for the tank.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so time for the 2 infantries. And it's no hits at all. Okay, and we trigger the battle for
sorry,
Vilnius right now.
sorry,
Okay, it's okay.
Sorry.
It's a tank and it's got the first combat round action, so it will retreat. And it can retreat into a friendly area, which will be Königsberg. And you stay put. Okay.
This would be really important.
I
And not-
sincerely doubt it because
I don't know,
they are up to being cut off supplies, so maybe it would not make a whole lot of difference. But okay, nice one. And it's the end of summer now, which means no supply issues as far as I can see. No, these ones are controlling Tehran and they can trace the supply route either through Turkmenistan or Caspian Sea or even Persia itself.
And what about my blockade?
Well, your blockade now
doesn't
really affect the production, so we may as well skip this step.
Okay, right.
And moving to the fall seasons.
Wake me up when September ends.
So in this summer, like a true Alexander the Great in a Russian version, I have conquered Persia in less than 1 year. And the Western player decides whether to commit a card or not for fall.
I think I will.
And I think I will as well.
Me too.
I think it's the most important number ever.
Yeah, and the German player will move first with
That way,
A6.
I would win the game. Do you know that I would win in the game if that would follow?
Yes.
1 and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
he would like to pincer Leningrad, that's
Those
for sure.
would be here. That just moved here. 1, 2. All this
Yeah,
here and
to
here.
be honest,
here,
this
and finish
would
the
be
game.
a mistake of mine because I retreated my
It was
tank
so
here
easy.
instead of Belarus.
So easy.
And this was really unlucky.
That's why. I mean,
Yeah, but in order to
7
do
dice,
that,
7 dice.
nothing.
yeah.
7 dice, nothing.
But okay, you've got to take into account that my fort failed twice as well, and also that you've got to win this fight. which
I'm
is-
with the Germans, right?
Okay.
So let's see.
So, Moscow control plus 3 units here.
Berlin will empty, I think.
It doesn't matter. I mean,
Do or die, as we said.
I mean, in previous game, the previous turn would be mine, I think.
Yes.
That's
It was really unlucky.
It does no matter.
Okay.
Okay, first this one.
This one in Kiev. So
Leave
my
the
double
important for
force.
the
That's
last.
why I left everything here in order he to aid the cheese. He ate
I
the
can
cheese.
see. I see
but,
what you did there. So, 5 tanks attacking the fort.
I will throw this. Here is
It's
my luck.
okay. No hits.
I can.
And 2 infantry. Yeah, switching back to the.
This is almost frustrating.
It was 2 infantry to be honest. So you've got to reroll the dice.
I think we should give him the
Yeah,
opportunity.
okay.
Doesn't matter because he enters and he finishes the game.
If this doesn't
I
work.
play first to be honest.
Okay. Okay, 2 dice. 2 dice.
Yeah, 2 dice. And it's 2 hits.
Yes.
Okay, which would be normal. And I lose 1 resource and 1
You saw
but
that those tanks 5 here plus this
It would be the end.
and this one.
yeah,
That is
okay. So let us check whether Leningrad falls. I've got 1 fort and 2 infantries. So fort first. And it's no hit. Okay, and this is my 2 infantries now.
First my fleet.
Yeah, okay. First your fleet of 2.
I have some possibilities. Very,
Yes.
very.
You've got some chances, but you really need a 1 roll here. And there's none.
Nothing now.
So 2 infantry on the ground, and it's 1 hit. And now you've got 3 infantry firing at
I need
3
three.
ground. Yeah, you need 3 dice rolls
Let's
for
see.
success. And yeah, history
So
will
that
record
was
this.
very easy.
Yes,
I
it was
saw
very
the
easy.
whole. I thought very easy.
Yeah,
And I think he should retreat back to Moscow, not to Kiev.
yeah, to
Indeed.
Belarus. Yeah, that was my mistake. But yeah, I didn't expect this all in to be honest, which was my mistake, of course. So just to note, this one moved to Moscow from Murmansk.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's a tank. Okay, go.
That's why it would be very easy to move 4
Yeah.
movements.
This would be a true into
I
the
want to throw
motherland.
this here
Okay,
in order
and
to
let's
be
see.
in the camera.
Okay,
Let's see.
let's do the brave German
3 to 3.
last
3 to 3.
resort attempts. No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Okay.
0.
I think
Okay, I think history does not favor the Germans.
Although-
I disband. You play first. You play
I think we all admire the decision, and it was 100% a matter of
I
luck.
was so sure because 7th dice never happened to me.
Yes.
Fail.
Yeah, to be honest,
so easy, so easy.
this was my mistake to not reinforce this one and bring everybody to Persia. But yeah, I was pretty lucky.
You
And
got luck
we
on your
got
side.
I can't believe how this. What was it? What was?
Yeah, it
Okay,
is
doesn't
the
matter.
fort you had previously attacked in Odessa. So it's an E7 by me. But in order to make this success, we've got to defend Berlin, which is not really an easy feat.
I think he won because he next turn he attacks here and lose.
Possibly, yeah. The only way would be to tie up all these units in some battle, but for this to happen, my unit has to survive, and that's not a possibility. There is also one last trick that I could use, which is one move would be this one, see invading Berlin. Wait, I'm see invading Berlin. Please don't interrupt me. So this one will go to Warsaw, which flips the control to Soviet, and this results in 1 less resource and 2 less population. And funny thing is, I cannot say invade with more units, but I can advance this guy from Königsberg, which gives you back 1 population. So you get 1 population for Königsberg, which would be my 3rd command. And then I've got 1 more, which would be this guy moving to Königsberg, so you lose again the population. And okay, I think all these guys are out of supply at this stage, so I don't have to do a whole lot of stuff more. But okay, with my 3 remaining commands, I could move some guys from here. And think it might be too early to attack Karachi.
Too early. The game
The game is ended.
I mean, I'm not even ready to finish off the Indians. And if I manage to defend Berlin, I will have more time to attack India in a more organized manner. So, 3 commands mean it could be here, and here, and also here. And this concludes my actions for this turn.
So there is no battle trigger, right?
There is a battle trigger because I committed an aggression. So, I've got 2 infantry and 1 tank, and you've got 1 fort. So, you attack?
So I think you don't want to destroy the fort.
Oh, I wouldn't mind destroying the fort, but okay, let's first see what the fort rolls.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a good opportunity to remind you the rules of 3-way fight. When a 3rd player enters the fray, he can choose which faction or factions to target, and only the defending faction's units get a chance to fire back at the attackers and not to anyone else. And if by any chance the British player, for example, kills the Soviets, then control of Berlin switches to the Soviets because they have been there the longest, so they get to be the owners. So by bringing my units there before the British player did, I am declaring that if you kill the Germans, I will be the owner because I was there first. So you have to kill both the Soviets and the Germans, which is no hard feat, to be honest, especially if I hit the Germans, which I definitely do not want to do. So I've got to hit first with my tank and then with my infantry, and I hope I don't destroy the Germans, as weird as it may sound. So tank first. And yay, infantry second. And the fort survives. So go on with your movement, please.
I think I will attack Berlin.
Okay, yeah, you are at the gates of Berlin. You can place
So
your flag on top of the Reichstag building.
1, 2. I see invasion raid.
Yay.
Another one from here, from lowlands, right?
Yeah, you can move 3
North
units
Sea.
from the this border, and you can also move units through this border as well. So it might be a total of 6 ground units.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Yeah,
From
you can
here?
move through from lowlands through Munich, and also if there are tanks, you can move them from Paris through Munich. So there are 2 land borders of plain to take
Actually,
advantage
by
of.
land, 6 units.
1, 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are 4 movements and I have 3 left. Can I move a ship from lowlands, low countries to Berlin? One.
No, because it will be 1, 2, 3. There are
From
2.
low countries to Ruhr, because Ruhr
Yeah,
has
you can land move it to Ruhr. Yeah, that's
Yes.
allowed.
Then,
No, you stop your land movement at Ruhr.
okay, so let's see. I am at 4 moves, right?
Yeah.
5, 6.
2 more.
The only ones
By land.
able to attack,
It's
I
better
think,
by-
are these 2 ships. They can go 1, 2, 3, right? And right.
Yeah, they can cross the friendly strait, but they have to stop at the Baltic Sea to
Yeah.
fight my ship.
It would be a naval ship, but
Naval combat, yeah.
that-
So this is the same for this.
Yeah, if it
I see.
started in the North Sea, it should stop in Baltic Sea.
It started Ruhr.
Okay, so it should, it should stop in Baltic Sea. So I unintentionally protected Berlin through Baltic Sea.
Okay, so from Ruhr, a ship must stop at Baltic Sea.
If it starts in Berlin, because it is the same coastline, it can just land move to
So
Berlin.
only this ship can attack Berlin.
Any ship that started in Ruhr can attack Berlin. Ships
Okay.
starting at North Sea or further cannot.
So these 2 ships will attack your ship here.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's start with this. It is 1 versus.
Okay, so your carrier gets to fire first.
Let's hope it deals some damage.
You need one or two.
One or two.
And my ship is sunk. I will name this
Amazing.
one Vladimir Putin by using the time machine and looking at the future. And okay.
Reveal.
Let's see. One tank, 2 infantry, another 3 infantry, 1 aeroplane, another 2 aeroplanes, and 3 battleships.
Okay, so you're
My
targeting
fortress.
both factions, and the fortress will target ground. So
Oh.
it's a hit onto the triple
Three.
infantry.
This was
And then the 3 aeroplanes and 3 fleets will attack our
Okay.
ground units.
Let's see.
No, just wait. I want to fully clarify the rules here.
Mhm.
Each unit will specify which player's ground units it will target.
Yes.
Okay. I think the best one is to get the German fortress first out.
So use your single
Better
aeroplane
not,
first.
because I hit already. So I will not hit again.
Okay.
Yeah, but because he has to destroy all of us, maybe he wants to commit the single air force to possibly destroy the
Okay,
single
the
German.
single air force will destroy the single German.
Exactly. And it was close but not enough.
Close but not enough. The 2 airplane force will destroy the Russians. If it.
One hit.
This
Yes.
should have gone to the Germans, because then you would not have to worry about the Germans anymore. Anyway,
So
The tank is removed.
Is removed. Okay.
and then we've got the
fleet.
triple fleet.
Triple fleet will destroy the Russians.
Okay.
No.
No
Nothing.
hit, and now my infantry will get. No, it's the tanks.
Is it my tank?
Yeah, your tank.
1 tank. Of course, the Russians.
Okay.
No.
Nothing.
Nope. And now my infantry gets the.
I have
No, you've got
first
rocket
fire.
artillery. So 4 hits. No, 2 hits
2
onto.
hits onto the Russian.
Okay. Good luck, Russia. No, this will be removed, and then
2
2
hits.
last hits onto the German fort.
And you can finish the game.
Let's see.
And yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Germans lose.
We took the
And,
Berlin.
just a moment.
Yeah.
I want to confirm.
Ah,
Are you
access
keeping
to
hold of Ruhr? No. So
I can relocate, right?
No, you can't rebase, because at the start of the combat phase, control of Ruhr is lost and given back to the Germans. So typically, we get a chance to protect Ruhr or reclaim Berlin. Now, to be honest, I think there is no such chance, because
You left everything.
I forgot. I didn't want to do
yeah,
that.
because this is home territory,
Yeah.
and it reverts
Yeah,
to the
exactly.
owner's original control if you leave it unoccupied.
Mm.
And okay,
I cannot
will-
rebase my plane here, right?
No.
No, because you have to rebase it in a friendly controlled area, and the control has already switched back to the
So
Germans.
let's clarify. I did 6 moves and 2, and these 2 could go to Ruhr as ships.
Yeah, to maintain control. Yeah,
and I
they
could
could.
have won.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
would have won, exactly, and I think I will possibly give up this game, because
Yeah,
there is no
yeah.
way to finish either the fleet
pass.
or the army.
But it
You
was
you need an action.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's another mistake that these ones might be cut off supply if I didn't lose the naval battle. I could
Yes,
position here, for example, and cut off supply for all these guys.
But the naval battle shouldn't have taken place because I
Yeah.
should go
Yeah,
just there.
It was.
Yeah, so the simplest path to victory would be to
from North Sea here
maintain
and-
control of Ruhr. Anyway, this was
Well
a nice
done.
game.
Well done.
uh,
Let's give
for
a
everyone.
triple
Yeah.
handshake.
So, historical result, the
Yeah.
Allies won, and in this universe they even placed their flag in the Reichstag before the Soviets do so. So no need for a Cold War to be fought afterwards, the Allies are in control. And this was a nice game, guys.
Yeah.
Glad to have played that. And because we have had some beginner mistakes, I was able to capitalize on them and demonstrate how mistakes can be punished.
And I think it was an admirable decision to do the blitzkrieg here and almost win the game by
Yeah,
Germany.
Yeah, it was a remarkable effort.
Remember that, for example.
Yeah,
you
I had a double fort, yeah.
You had something. You had
Yeah,
something here.
it was a Russian tank
And-
and I should have retreated
I
it to the other
I
Russian.
predicted that, Because I know that you're an experienced player and you retreat here. So in that case, I did 3 from here and 3 from here. That in case I didn't destroy that or retreat that, would be able with 4 units go 1 here and 3 here. In case you retreat or didn't destroy, that's why I attack in 2. Basically, because here would be retreat and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't arrive to Moscow, so I needed this place actually.
Yes.
This place was just for reinforced and re-attack Leningrad or whatever. But I knew that would be retreat here, and I saw that, and you made it easier.
Yeah, I know. It is a common mistake of mine to underprotect the Russian capitals, because it feels to me that I have got all the time in the world to protect them and cut the Germans of supply, but in this case I could lose the game outright. But of course I take into account that I've got some strong forts that need some dose of luck in order to be taken out. So I often gamble on that I will survive and bait the Germans inside and then encircle them and cut them off.
The main problem of the Soviets is very thematic as well, is that he has huge territories to defend. So it seems sometimes that you control Soviet Union, but you don't control it. You can find many holes, and easy holes sometimes. Like
this was one of the first places to reinforce, but at some point, usually the Soviet player feels too comfortable and shifts his attention elsewhere, like in India, for example. Which in another game might be the correct move, but after all the Germans massively dying in Paris and losing so many forces, they were too weak to defend their possessions in Germany and France. So this accelerated the Western players' play much more than I would have liked to.
That was 7 dice miss. With
this
1,
will
2,
go
3.
viral. This will go viral.
The key of the game was this one.
Yeah, but you've got to take into account that my fort was firing first and it missed twice, which is a chance of like 4 in 24 or something like that. So you normally had 1 or 2 less dice if I was not.
Some viewers on the video will point out the
timestamp
on this battle in Kiev.
For all our viewers, I hope you understand the mechanics a little better now. And you may feel free to leave your own comments, be it on the rules or the strategic decisions of the players. I would gladly answer all the questions. And now, as a finishing note, we will make a photo. So at this point, the German player would like to make a statement.
Das war ein Befehl!
Okay, so we've got to congratulate the Churchill ally for winning this game, and until the next time, by me it is Do widzenia.
Auf Wiedersehen!
Au revoir.